Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man so busy figuring out whether we could do a thing that he didn't stop to consider whether we should do that thing.
Tim Longo. Oh man, that's the perfect intro to this game.
Thank you very much.
I mean, wow, because it's like works on so many levels.
I'm very aware.
Oh boy, I don't even know how to follow up on that.
Yep. If you're an astute listener, you probably figured out we're doing some sort of Jurassic Park thing, and in fact, we are tackling 1998's Trespasser. Wrestling with its intricacies, shall we say. So yeah, that's it's going to be a struggle for me, I think. I'm
looking at the review scores too. It's probably the lowest rated game we've ever played.
I'm sure that's true. Probably by far, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to go look, but
which is not I have this. I'm the one pushing to play this game for sure. Brett is gonna yell at me the whole time, probably, but I think that it is an important game to play, despite its jankiness or whatever. Yeah, I think it's Whew. Yeah. Some of these outlets gave it like 1 out of 10 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I mean, I don't think that's fair. I think that is too low. But I think that's more of a, we don't want you to have taken our review to suggest that you buy this game. Like, they were basically defending themselves from the hordes of internet people. I think this is a total aside, having nothing to do with anything we'll talk about this episode. But my favorite feature so far is the repeat voice line button.
Yeah, that feels very much like a licensed game feature, right? We spent this money on Mini Driver.
Yeah.
And we, or whatever, or Richard Attenborough.
Well, so, I mean, I was just walking around and she was constantly saying, "Oh no. Oh God, this is Site B. This is John Hammond's Lost Worlds."
Oh, you just kept repeating that?
I just kept repeating it again and again and again. And I just happened upon that feature. I didn't, they don't tell you about it. That's a lot.
I remapped all of my keys, yeah.
Oh, I didn't remap any keys. I just hit it because it's next to the E key or something, or maybe I missed the D. I don't know. Whatever happened. She repeated the line and I was like, "Oh no, is there a bug already?" and then I realized it was something I'd done. So, player initiated. Okay, well let's set it in its time. We'll start first with the games. There's quite a few we've played from this year. There are some games that are probably in one or the other of our personal canons of great games that we've loved. So, of the games we've played, Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, Baldur's Gate. We have played Resident Evil 1 and 4, though not 2, which came out this year. Half-Life, and Thief, I think, are all the ones that we have played from this year. It's one of those years, 1998 and 2004, which are my bookend years at LucasArts, are like killer years. So it makes it easy for me to remember that those are like two of the best years of games of all time. Although apparently this year is in the running as well, because I think this year has been kind of incredible. So yeah, and then let's see, the ones that are not games we've played: StarCraft, Grim Fandango, Unreal, the original Unreal, Myth 2, Soul Blighter, game that I quite enjoyed. Another game that was kind of different from the normal thing, which meant it sunk into obscurity. Descent Free Space, which I mentioned mostly because it's the way its mission editor worked informed a lot of how we did the mission editor for Starfighter. Rogue Squadron, Medieval, which was a quirky PlayStation 1 action-adventure game I quite enjoyed. Did I mention Fallout 2? We've played a
I
Fallout.
don't think so. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Gran Turismo. I just noticed too.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. There was it 3? I think it was 3.
No,
Maybe it was the original actually in 1998. Because PlayStation 2 wouldn't be for a couple of years. Sorry, I was thinking about the PlayStation 2
in North America. At least it was 98. Yeah, it was in Japan in 97.
I got it. Okay. And Star Siege Tribes, Banjo-Kazooie. I think I got everything that was on our list there. Quite a good year for games. And Trespasser. Entering that August company before, we've played quite a number of them. Just keep that in mind. We could have been playing Myth 2. If we could have found it, I guess. Well, we could have found it probably the same way we're finding this, which is we had to go to this game has been out of circulation for ages. We went via an abandonware site. There's some pretty good instructions on at least the one I found that made there's a fan base out there who loves this game and keep it running. Despite the fact that it's been so long since it came out, 25 years. Anyway, take it away on DreamWorks.
Well, so we wanted to talk about DreamWorks a little bit, and I don't have a deep knowledge, but the importance of DreamWorks in this context is that they're people may or may not remember or know that Spielberg was, has had interest in gaming for a long time and has had sort of ups and downs as far as getting projects going, and mostly downs, to be honest, things that he was trying to do with EA. He made a deal with EA to do a couple things that didn't ever see the light of day, actually after this. But DreamWorks Interactive was established.
I think one game came out from that he was involved in, which was Boom Blocks for the Wii.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that was a Lewis Castle kind of situation or something, right? As I recall, but his heart was in the right place, and he was trying. He's always been trying, and DreamWorks Interactive was one of these attempts of spinning off of a interactive division. They I don't know their history, I guess. I don't remember how long they lasted. It was, 95 to 2000. They actually made it to... Okay, and then I forgot that Electronics Arts essentially bought them. But, so for like 5 years as DreamWorks Interactive. So, but long story short, because we don't have to go into too much detail, just they're the developers. Electronic Arts was the publisher. And, this was an era where there were a lot of, there's always the licensed games, but this game was trying to boast that it was, Jurassic Park was big at the time. It was an obvious IP to use, especially from Spielberg's perspective. And so they were trying to shoot for the stars, and then also supporting, because of Spielberg's sort of backing, supporting the game in ways that wasn't always something that a lot of games benefited from when it comes to high caliber talent, voice talent, high caliber music. Minnie Driver being the main character, Richard Attenborough as John Hammond having unique VO for the game. And so, somebody's convincing these folks to do this,
right?
Kind of sight unseen, not really knowing what the game is going to be.
Ultimately, I have to assume that Steven Spielberg makes a couple calls.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you usually have a Spielberg doing that, right? So it's kind of a unique situation to take.
We should mention too the Dig, which was the adventure game he worked with Lucas.
Yeah. So he's always been experimenting. I think, and I think to his credit, he has always seen value in this space. And so I've always been excited and applauded him for experimenting. But it's just I don't know how he comes upon his projects, or where he why he throws his his weight behind certain things and not others, or how they all come about, but they've all been interesting stories, I think. And this is definitely one of those. Very weird game. And I think, even though I was being a little bit snarky about the reviews, I actually don't think, for me, playing this game, it's a sort of an, no pun intended, like an artifact of some kind. It's I think, like I said earlier, it's an important game to play, not because it's great or good or in a specific way, but because it was way ahead of its time and it was trying to do things that I think it's important to talk about, because I think most people have not played this game, nor will they play this game, of course, especially because it's so hard to play. Both hard to play and also hard to play. But it for me at least, and I know other, friends and colleagues, it actually had, because it reached for the stars, it had a big influence on a lot of different, it had an influence on a lot of different people, I think, both big influence, but also maybe unexpected. It's a game that I actually started many times, and for obvious reasons, as we'll talk about as we play, a lot of people put the game down very easily based on how it plays.
More easily than you put things down in the game.
Come on, you just press a key and press the right mouse button. Anyway, but yeah.
That's dropping a thing. I mean placing it.
Oh, placing it. Yes. No, putting it down exactly where you want to. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
It's a process. But yeah, I just... It's just, I don't know if it's a time capsule or, and the other thing about it is that they were shooting for the stars in technology wise as well.
Yeah. I know. And I have listened to interviews with Seamus Blackley, and I know that, first of all, he didn't really have the experience to build what he was building. Like, he wasn't there yet. But I also just want to call back to last week's takeaway about physics.
Yeah, I thought of it.
In games, in a much more mature game. Another quite a ways later, it's like, you really want to be able to control that character. Just saying.
I know. I thought about that same thing. I kind of thought about calling myself out on that. But the thing is that what you could say, what I will say about that takeaway, is that this game is taking that takeaway writ large and, putting a magnifying glass on it, right? And the thing is that, and here's my other justification.
I believe you mean rationalization.
Okay, both. Yeah, rationalization, both. But is that and this, man, I don't think this is a stretch, but you might think it's a stretch. But the takeaway in Alan Wake for me was because the game was trying to do something different. Like, there was a conflict between what the game was trying to be and then how they wanted the character to play. I don't think those things went together well, and they shouldn't have been put together because, one part of the project was trying to do a thing that the other was not supporting. The thing about this game is that they are all in. They are all in, as Luke says in Gilmore Girls. And yes, Gilmore Girls reference for you there.
I get it. Thanks. Dealing with it.
You just process that for a second. And that's why I wanted to play this game, because this is an all-in. Failures aside, quality aside, if you put it next to Quake or whatever, some other game at the time, there's plenty of things to bash on the game on. But, these sorts of experiments that even a flawed gem, failure, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to what they were trying to achieve, it's one of the most memorable games I've ever played, because it's, it swung for the fences, and missed, I guess, a whiff. I don't know what do you ball players say, but but I think it planted seeds in a lot of us where, like you said,
this is the velvet goldmine of of its era.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Studio 54, which by the way was around 1 year. I think people always talk about Studio 54, but it apparently only existed for a year.
Well, I think Velvet Goldmine was CBGB, but
no, I was bringing up a separate. Yeah, I know they're separate things, but I'm just saying those. To your point, it's those things that had this cascading effect, right? Yeah. Even though they were short-lived and potentially a failure. And I mean, I'm definitely stretching on this, but there needs to be these trailblazers. And yeah, you could say that games like and we'll talk about, two of the people leading this project were ex-Looking Glass. So I think that's really relevant because I was about to make a reference to a Thief. It's like some games achieve it better than others when they're trying to experiment with something fairly profoundly different than everything else out there, but also sticking to their guns on what they were trying to do. Because Thief also feels weird when you play it. It's the character doesn't move like any other character. A lot of different rules. We talked about it with System Shock 2. You brought it up in pre-show. So, but like these old games are all in the same space, and they didn't do it. But I'm so happy they tried. I guess that's my summary.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair. I mean, and I do think it is relevant that it's a game that designers played and were like, there's something here. They didn't nail it. I mean, there's a lot of ways they're not nailing it. I'm finding. I mean, it's not even the controls and the physics and all of that. It's the fact that you see the, I guess, brachiosaurs, and then you just kind of stroll by them. It's just like, okay, the dinosaurs. She doesn't comment on it.
I got a comment.
Hammond has a voice line. She does say something. You don't. I can't. When you said John Williams' music was in this, they don't play the big soaring da 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 da. When she sees the brachiosaurs, I'm like, what? I mean, like, nobody's seen these things nobody's seen these things except for all these people who died on whatever the other one was, the Isla something. So it just like it's also like. It's amazing that she is in a plane crash, survives, is totally fine, and just kind of walks out of the water and is like, wow, it's warm here. Like, what? Yeah. I mean, she was so blasé about like literally everything. She didn't make any comment about the raptor coming after her. When I shot the raptor, it's just been very funny. I mean, there's probably a limit to the number of lines they could get Minnie Driver to do, and she probably didn't want to do lots of like eeks and whatever, voice actor like bread and butter barks. But I just have been underwhelmed by that presentational stuff. That's the stuff that actually, like, if some of that were there, I think it would actually help the game tremendously at not a huge implementation cost. So anyway, that's the thing that I've noticed so far, beyond all the physics and all of that stuff, which is very wonky. Yes. And, and I get it. They're trying for things nobody was really trying for, but they're not making some other fundamentals that people were trying. I mean, you look at the list of games that I read, and those are hitting these things, they're recognizing that there's a player there and the player wants to have a reinforcement of certain emotions, excitement or fear. And the game's not giving it. So far. In the first level,
it's pretty, other than its other flaws, it's pretty well known for the bad voice acting that it's just off tone. I mean, it's kind of, especially because the caliber was so high, but it doesn't, they don't connect. Right. This would have been, I don't know. I mean, maybe after Good Will Hunting for her or something like that. Like, she was at her apex, probably one of her, doing some.
Yeah, she would have done Then Goodwill Hunting, maybe Circle of Friends, I think.
Big Night, maybe.
Big Night, for sure. I think that's 1996.
So it's like, definitely you're playing this like, oh, Minnie Driver is a main character, and you're playing and you're like, oh, that was a waste,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I think it's another interesting, like I think it's an interesting question for the podcast, which we do talk about from time to time. But should we play more bad games that are important or teach us something? And this is an example of that for me, because I think there's an important takeaway / lesson in what you just said about what the voice lines are missing for you. You know what I mean? And they're missing for me too, right? I'm not going to defend them at all. But I think the importance of how hard you need to work to make those work well, and implement them well, but also act them well and direct them well. And even if you get amazing talent that is good, so I think there's another interesting sort of reminder. Maybe you don't need that reminder per se, and it's it's easy to say because it's like no duh, but also hypothetically a lot of the stars should have aligned here for some of this stuff, but it didn't. So I don't know. I think it's just really fascinating to there's a saying out there from somebody, I don't remember where, or maybe it's just been butchered over time, but it's you learn a lot more from bad games than you do good sometimes, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's I'm butchering it, but it's that whole concept, and that the same goes for any medium, really.
No, I know. I mean, I've played definitely some stinkers in my time. I played Red Rock, no shade on anybody who worked on Red Rock, but it's not a good game. And the reasons why, I mean, there's like a lot of interesting things in there. And I remember playing it and thinking, yeah, if there were just more expression of these ideas, there actually might have been something here. If it were a little less janky, if some of the themes gelled a little bit better. But the real problem was like it didn't actually do enough with all the things that it threw at you. It's kind of like you saw a thing once and it was gone, and which is another kind of like movie person making a game kind of problem. Like, I got the story. I want to have set piece after set piece after set piece. But if you don't have something reliable for the player to know how to do, it kind of makes like you're learning something new and difficult, and all the time. So anyway, yeah. I mean, I think it is well said that there is, value in looking at that things that miss the mark because you can identify what's missing. But at the same time, I wonder, like, because of the firepower behind this, like, I wonder how they didn't notice.
Well, they had to release. They were forced to release early.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. But I mean, I get you, and I don't know. I'm sure there's, like you said, you've listened or read some interviews, but I'm sure there's information out there about how they.
I suspect they were just overstretched, and they
overdone, and it's like sunk cost fallacy. I'm sure was a big deal here because they were doing so many new technological things, and so much invested. And then there's the whole movie angle. Another tidbit that I forgot, and I didn't go through the credits yet, but I do know that generally, and there's been some development teams that have attempted this in the past and even recent past, which I won't name, but where they hire heavily from film and other industries to create a game studio because they believe that because that talent is amazing and they've done amazing things in other places. And so, of course, it's got to work if you hire these amazing, talented people to make a video game. But there definitely are inherent challenges with that if those people, haven't made games before, even though they are extremely talented. And I believe a number of at least, higher up people or leads or directors on this, are coming from Disney and even like Imagineering, so working on theme park stuff, so you're throwing a bunch of people into a stew to do something like this. And to your question on like what did they or did they not know, and they may not have been able to assess in the same way that Even though technically people from Looking Glass like Seamus Blackley and Austin Grossman, would have had that experience. But I think there was some point where some deal was made and they had to force it out, even though they said they needed another year. They didn't get it. Yeah. And you can see that. You could see that kind of rushed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do. And I think that's very true of the era. Like, thinking about, I was thinking about the voice performance here, which again, I mean, who knows? Like, she probably never saw the game, so had no concept, of like what these lines are for, what context. So like, we didn't know how to direct actors well in games, especially actors who were used to interacting with other actors. I'm sure they recorded their lines independently. So there's all kinds of like production realities that I'm sure were terrible, for the game from that standpoint. Because I'm thinking even later in like, I think 2004 was Spider-Man 2, the movie game that Jamie Fristrom was creative director on. And you've got Tobey Maguire in that. He's totally flat, not clearly there just because he has to be there. And then Willem Dafoe is amazing in that same game, right, as the Green Goblin. Like, he gets it. He's all in on like being as scenery chewing as he can be as the Goblin. I mean, I think it's just a very different kind of environment for them to work in. But I did miss the just like moments of wonder, I guess, that the film evokes. Wonder and horror. Like, I didn't get either in the sort of two first encounters with dinosaurs, and I was like, wow, that's really like, you're adapting, you're adapting something well, and that's missing.
Right. They didn't
such a surprise,
Yeah, the stars didn't align there. An alternate perspective on, though, and especially talking about the first level, as you're talking about the first time you see the brachiosaur or just dinosaurs in general. Despite, to be honest, I forgot until we started it again. Or I don't know. I guess you probably didn't play it in the past, but
I did not. First time.
Okay, great. Even better. I'm so happy we're doing this. I had forgotten until loading it back up that she was even in the game. That
I can believe it.
Well, yeah. And so the point being, though, is that even though a big name like that probably drew people to the game and they used it for PR purposes, and Dreamworks, it's like Dreamworks is making a game and all this kind of stuff. So they had probably good PR reasons, and that probably was something that excited me. But the reason I think I didn't remember is that I don't care. And the thing that I pulled from this game, especially over time, once we play, if we do finish, or at least play many, many hours of it, the thing that is one of the most important things to me about this game is the sense of solitude and the sense of being on this island and being stranded. It's a survival game. And I think I mentioned that it had some influence on the Tomb Raider reboot. I think we talked about it with Clint when it comes to Far Cry 2. Mm-hmm. He also considers it, I believe, at least some sort of inspiration. And if you just kind of forget, like, we have to talk about the health mechanic and the ridiculousness of the model.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out. I mean, because it's a HUD-less game, right? So,
we should just hit it now. I mean, you look down and
she has
body.
She has a tattoo over her heart. But you just look down and it's like, oh, there's my heart indicator and my cleavage.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
It's definitely like guys playing with their calculator.
Yeah, exactly. So super bummer on that. And we have to call it out, as a good, bad example of industry issues, right? Especially in the medium. But apart from that, from a and I think I'm on record saying first person perspective is my favorite perspective generally, because I love immersion. I just, after a while, it just fades away that I am anybody but myself in a way in this game. And I am just stranded on this island with dinosaurs. and the simple goal of getting off the island. That's it, and I have to kind of problem solve my way through it. So that sense of solitude and isolation kind of ended up sort of washing over me, because I think I probably started the game at least 3 times, and before I finished it.
Mm-hmm.
But the sense of committing to such a weird game that's trying to do so many weird things all at once, like they should have just chose 1 or 2 of the things they're attempting. Because I think, there's like bump mapping in this game. I
think there's like a dinosaur ecology, like that.
There is. Yeah. They will attack each other. You'll see more of it probably in the next levels, but you can let them kind of do their thing. Of course, like you already mentioned, the animations are procedural. There's no pre-animated anything, so you have IK dinosaurs all over the place, including things like letting the physics do its thing. And if you know how to do it, you can just run from raptors and they'll fall down a hill on their own, because they're IK, if you lure them to steep enough.
There's not enough tension in their legs. I've noticed it as they walk around, is that they just dip weirdly. It's like there's one joint that's just like, just too much weight is going into it, and it's bending, in a way that doesn't, it's very funny because, you can spot a bad animation from a million miles away because we're pattern recognizing, like we know what looks right. The uncanny valley exists, it's a thing that we know about. And this is like, this game is set in the uncanny valley.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think as a developer, the thing that I definitely, rationalizing, but also had come to terms with once you finish the game, because it's sort of like,
I think they were saying to themselves as they did these things, that's so cool, and we'll fix it up, we'll make it better, and if they didn't have another year to do it, that makes sense. Although I don't know, it's like it was more than a year. Yeah.
It's like because they're doing weird physics stuff, they're doing weird texturing stuff, they're doing weird AI stuff. Like there's the ecology stuff, there's the hit location stuff. Depending on where you fire at things, I believe there's some of that going on. There's really leaning into ragdoll and those sorts of things. It's just kind of goes on and on and on. It's sort of like, it is definitely one of those, you get a sense that it's one of those, for the era at least, one of those yes games where they just kind of said yes to too many things, and they should have focused on it. But then, in the second level, if you find it, because the levels are quite open, like it's an early open world game. I'm sure the level load was pretty surprising to you when it happened, but so it is level based technically, but the levels themselves, even the second level, you can kind of follow the main path, which is pretty obvious, but there's whole sections where you can just wander around through the jungle, essentially. I mean, it's not many trees. And then you can get down to the water. There's an ocean kind of little lagoon, and some voice lines play from the film, I think, from the first film, of a pretty when you hear them, you'll remember where they're from. I won't spoil it. If you find this, it's totally optional to go find this location. But
I hope they're all Wayne Newton.
No.
Or what's his name? That's his name, right?
Wayne Newton. Who?
Not what's that guy's name who played Newman?
Jeff Cole. Oh, I don't know his real name.
Wayne Knight. Wayne Knight is his name.
Wayne Knight. Yeah.
Wayne Newton is the Las Vegas.
That's why you confused me, because I know who Wayne Newton is.
Yes. Yeah. No. Sorry. I was taking Newman and making a Newton.
Yeah.
I couldn't get to Knight.
His first name and his last
and his other character,
name.
His big character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a different character. It's actually a side character,
I was joking. I did not really think it was going to be Wayne Knight.
No. I think we already know the 2 actors they actually get that have any purpose. Oh, and there's another funny point. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about more of this weird game. But my point being is that there's also, if you wander off, you see dinosaurs that you wouldn't normally see on the main path, or you wouldn't see at all. I mean, you probably see them later on the main path. So it's just this sense of like, she doesn't comment on it, and there isn't always music to go with it, but it's also not a linear shooter, a Call of Duty kind of. It's just like, I guess what it is, I'm squinting and I can see where they could have gone, what they could have done if they had fully realized it. I think, I'm trying to think of another game that we've played where it's very much to be honest, I kind of put Ultima Underworld a little bit in this bucket, where it's such a weird, unique game that isn't like so many other things, even though there was a whole subgenre that, Looking Glass and those sorts of games, that System Shock, that were in like themselves, but generally, especially with the Quakes and the Dooms and stuff around that time, it just fits in its own almost universe, and this is one of the games for me where I just feel like you kind of just commit and you kind of just let it be what it is. And I think it kind of washes over you. Even the picking up of stuff and the weird hand arm thing that they're doing. It's like, what are you doing? Why would you ever do this? This is the most. But once you kind of embrace it, you're kind of, for me at least, it becomes a little bit like, oh, wow, this is something else. This is really something else. Obviously bold, but also like, what the heck is happening? It's just like
I'll give you my biggest example of that. I mean, sure, the arm is floppy and weird, and I was kind of fiddling with it and trying to like understand how to control it. It took me a long time to get that I was going to have to crouch to get close enough to the ground to pick things up that were on the ground. Yeah, because there's a point in the first area where she says something like maybe a foundation or something like that. So I'm like, okay, now she's repeating maybe a foundation. And I realized, it said something like, see if you can find other things to interact with after you picked up whatever it was. And I'm like, I can't pick anything else up. Like, you taught me how to pick up this thing. There was a board that was like leaning, up against the bits of blocks there that you could sort of climb up. And I knocked that board down trying to get onto it. And then I couldn't pick it up because I didn't know you had to crouch in order to pick things up off the ground. Right. Yeah. So it's just like every step of the way, I'm like, what is going on? Like, but then the real kicker was there's another area, that's sort of next where it's like, well, you can, maybe climb around in here. It basically tells you, climb around and, get comfortable with the controls, sort of what it says. And I realized that there was a jump that I couldn't make. It was kind of a step up, but it was too high a step for her to jump. But if I was moving towards it and put my hand down onto it, I could leverage my hand to get enough height to get up. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what are they doing? Like, that's, it's just so strange. It is so strange. Like,
well, did you also know that you can rotate your wrist and your arm? There's
I saw that in the controls when I opened it up, because I was like, why is this repeating? And then I found that there was a keybind for it, and I had to rebind something because of my funky keyboard. Like the spacebar. The spacebar is under my right hand on that board, but I'm using my right hand for the mouse. So I had to put it on like backspace or something, which is under my left thumb, to put the U's somewhere I could get to it easily. So that's when I discovered, oh, that's what I've been doing. I mean, I'd figured out the R key, but it was like, repeat or replay last voice line or something like that. Weird.
Well, yeah, if you want to line up the crosshairs of a gun, you would want to do it discreetly, because there's no crosshairs, there's no HUD.
Right.
So you kind of have to rotate your wrist and your arm and then line up the front and the back of the gun and then run around with your arm straight out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. And then, it's just, I don't know.
I mean, I'm a good shot with the pistol, not the 38, but I guess it's a Magnum maybe.
Yeah.
Or Colt.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but
there's a couple. There's a Magnum, I think, but there's also like a Glock or something. Yeah. I'm doing a bad job at kind of, I think over time, maybe I'll keep kind of trying to describe my infatuation with this game. And I don't think I'm doing a good job at really like sinking into what it means to me. But there's just, like, I think in pre-show you mentioned the teeter-totter section, right? Or that little puzzle. Yeah. It's just such a funny, like a simple example like that, where you just need to get up a little hill and you need to use this teeter-totter to do it. Right. And I think, at the time Half-Life had, we talked about Half-Life coming out. Half-Life 2 hadn't come out, right? But
no, that's 2004.
And Half-Life 2 is where the physics really comes into play, right? And Half-Life 1 is just a really well-polished game with some simple interactions, but generally pretty traditional shooter, systemically at least. And the fact that just one teeter-totter became an adventure, if that makes sense, where you're like, okay, now it's aimed the wrong direction. I need to get this side down. Okay, I'm looking around. There's some rocks. I could shoot it, to get it to go the other direction.
Or I could reload and try the jump again.
Or you could reload. Yes, you for sure. But, again, that's my point about like embracing what it is, like letting it sink in and be what it is. There's a section in the second level, if you find it, you don't have to go there, where there's sort of an abandoned, like small cluster of buildings. And the funny thing, I don't think there's any other, I think later there are some puzzles where there's other reasons to kind of climb around on stuff and figure out how you're going to get up to a place. So you have to be creative with the physics system and everything. But, for the first couple levels, the only thing you're really looking for are weapons, for the most part, right? Like, because you can't reload, weapons are finite. Like you said, you don't carry them over from level to level, so it's like they're all discreetly placed. So you get this little cluster of buildings, and you're like climbing around. There's like, why are these here? And I think actually there's some voice lines play, but you get up to the top, and there's like a rifle, and it's just so funny because it's such a simple thing of like, oh, I really want that rifle. And so you just spend all this time trying to figure out if you can jump or can you do something to climb up there. But because they've given you these options that you may or may not want to use, but they're there. At the time, there weren't a lot of games doing that kind of sandboxiness. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Other than Looking Glass games were System Shock 2 being that's coming out later, but
next year. Yeah. Oh no, maybe a couple of years. Yeah.
Thief came out this year, and there was sandboxiness within that game because it was
maybe the original System Shock. We didn't play that.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultima Underworld. Maybe I was getting Ultima Underworld vibes from this or something, when it comes to like, but again, systemically, especially technology wise, it was definitely trailblazing. Ultima Underworld, I mean. Yeah, but it wasn't like this kind of stuff, right? Where you're trying to pitting physics against each other and really like building a staircase by yourself. You know what I mean? Like
with a bunch of boxes or something like that. Yeah.
Or outsmarting procedurally animated raptor. And like to your point about like noticing the noticing the uncanny valley right away, which is completely true. But it's like, I think for me coming into it, I know what the game is. And so I'm like, I just want to watch the weird raptors run around and see how their knees bend incorrectly or whatever, but still sort of appreciate it in a way, because it's like watching, I don't know, like some sort of simulator. I mean, it is supposed to be a simulator, right? Like that's their whole thing. It's a dinosaur simulator, but like, I don't know, like from a PhD student's physics project or something, it's like, your intro is perfect because it is very much like, could we do this?
Yeah.
Why don't we try this out? And it's like, should you? No, it's not time. We're not ready for this. But my closer for this, and then we can move on, is there's a series of games out today, like Surgeon Simulator, like
Yeah, the goat thing.
Goat Simulator.
Octodad.
Octodad, the one where you climb mountains in a cauldron. I forget what that one's called.
Oh, Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy.
Yeah. So good. There's just... This is the first game to do this stuff. One of the first, if not the first. And yes, the arm is janky and ridiculous and weird and like, why am I doing this with my life? But... and I'm sure people that develop those games probably didn't even play Trespasser, never have played it.
Yeah.
Right? But somewhere...
Bennett's probably played it.
Yeah, somewhere in the zeitgeist, or I don't know, not zeitgeist, the collective subconscious, it's out there someplace, and you need these games to be those trailblazers.
Okay. I get it. I will say... I don't play those games either. So, yeah. I haven't played Octodad, so I don't play any of those games. So it's funny. I get it because, I'm very drawn to building simulations.
Mm-hmm.
But I never play them. I very rarely play simulation games, certainly not physicsy simulators, like this. I play games that have physics in them, but not to this.
Yeah, not to this degree. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe this will be the first game that I finish and you don't finish. That would be a feat. But
there's probably one of those.
You think? I was looking at the list the other day, but
oh yeah, we'd have to ask the Junebot what games I've not finished and what games you've not finished.
Yeah. The Discord channel for this does have both of ours listed. You have not, you have not finished only a few.
Yeah, it's a relatively few that I've not finished, but there are some. XCOM is probably the biggest.
Yeah, I do still want to go back to that one for sure, and I bet you I could finish that one before you do.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, because
I actually almost finished. Yeah,
because of the way I was playing it. I was like never leaving anybody. Nobody would die, and so the game was just getting harder and harder and harder. As Julian Gollop explained, the way that the game balances difficulty is, well, the more people survive, like the harder the game gets. It's like, might as well let some people die every time you go out. Bring some newbies along to die so that you can keep the game easier. Can't believe that was quite a thing. Talk about trailblazing, putting in a dynamic difficulty balancing the day before you go gold. Nobody played through the game with it. Amazing. Anyway, That's a whole thing. We're almost at 50 minutes. We could maybe catch up on some emails. I can tell we're going to have a lot to talk about with this game. We'll talk about individual puzzles, I'm sure, as we go, or spaces and things like that. I look forward to seeing the systems interact with one another more, because so far it's a bunch of discrete pieces. Right. So there's been, with the exception of, I guess, the gunplay, because of, I did interact with a dinosaur with a gun. But I did actually have a raptor kill her, and then was just eating her.
Yeah. You definitely shouldn't reload right away. You need to.
I'm just lying there on the ground, and it's just eating me.
The body flops around, and the camera moves. And,
I was like, "Am I still alive?" Like,
mm-hmm.
But she, of course, she doesn't react in any way. So it's like she didn't react when she was, hit. Maybe she did, and I didn't retain it. But like then she's on the ground, and I'm like, I would definitely be screaming. I would be screaming right now. And at some point the screaming would stop and I would know I was dead, and then I'd get a reload prompt, but none of that happens. The simulation just keeps going.
Yeah.
And so I was like trying to flop her around, try to crawl away or something. Cause I'm like, I guess I can still get out of this somehow. I don't know how, but it seems like maybe I could. Anyway.
It's so authentic. You're just laying there.
How do you know that? How many dinosaurs have you seen? Other than chickens. I will say Attenborough is fine. I mean, he's reading from his memoir or something, so it's kind of a even keel sort of thing. But his lines have been fine. They have not. They've been fine. Oh, I did. Let's see here. This I thought was funny. We can maybe end on this. So if you go to the monorail, because you have to leave this section, there's the button on the wall, which is describing it was the visitors center, and it's sort of describing what you're about to see here. And it says that the last thing it says as the battery winds down, and as we wind down, it says, "Now, thanks to a breakthrough technology." And I think that's this game. That's right there in that line. It wound down before it quite broke all the way through. So we shall see how it goes in future weeks. Which next week I think we're going to be off. I'm not away.
Yeah, there's a chance.
I will aim to play, and maybe you'll have a chance to play some more before you go. You probably remember more anyway. You tend to remember games better than I do. I was sort of a joke, but playing Arkham City on my my New Game Plus playthrough, and I was literally getting story stuff wrong that I literally just finished it the week before. And I was like, I think I'm pretty much done. And then I was like, oh, no, that's right. There's all of this stuff. I totally forgot about all this stuff. Literally a week later. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, we might be able to sneak. So if we can record Tuesday instead of Monday, then I might be able to play before I leave, and then I'll be ready when I come back.
Yeah, that's fine. We should do that.
So weird.
Just let me know how far you get.
Okay.
I think there'll be stuff to talk about in every level. So, and I'm sure I will unearth more strange things. I will see things that because it's all going to be new to me. And you may not remember, what order you saw things in, or what.
Oh no.
What weird interactions you had to try to complete. I'm sure there are some that really have stuck with you because it is a difficult, strange game, and it's gonna be like, I remember that time I figured out how to blah 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 blah. So those stories will probably come up, and I will make some of my own. I am trying to keep an open mind. So I was thinking though that the equivalent game, not that I would recommend we play it, but like Galleon, I think is.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
Toby Gard's post. That's like a. I don't know. It's post Tomb Raider. It's a couple years past this. It was on the original Xbox.
It's a good example of a game swinging for the fences, though, too. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he's totally doing different things. Like there's this mechanic where, like, the longer you keep running, you just go faster and faster and faster. It's to ridiculous levels. As long as you can keep your momentum going and things like that. And then there's a lot of parallels. I think it is more polished, but than this, which I guess low bar, but it does have sort of similar wonkiness. Or Die by the Sword would be another one. I don't know if you remember that. Sword swinging mechanics, and that would have been right around this time. That would have been 97 or 98 as well, I believe. I think it was right around when I came into the industry that game came out. It might have come out that spring when I was first at LucasArts.
I mean, it is the again, not to flog a dead horse, but your intro is so appropriate for these kinds of games at this era because simulation was. I mean, it's like we talk about with RPGs, right? That everything has RPG aspects now. We don't even think twice about it. But there was a time when there was the experimentation about infusing that into games, and simulation is the same thing. It's like, okay, we're starting to learn how to do these sorts of simulations. How do you, and Alan Wake is a good example. How do you, infuse it into a game, a genre like a first person shooter or a survival game or something like that, right? How do you mix the two appropriately? There's a lot of games that were trying to figure that out at the time. And this one, just went to the hilt.
in all sorts of directions. Okay, let's turn to email. These were sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. Blah, 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 blah. Getting tongue tied. The physics on my tongue is.
You gotta hold down R and then E and then rotate your tongue. Yeah,
that's my problem. Now I'm thinking about how I move my body too much, and it's just throwing me off. So why don't you go ahead and hit the first one? I think we do actually have some questions and stuff this week. So
okay,
actually, why don't you do Artemage's first? That's your second mail, just so we get that out there for people who are listening. This is for charity.
Yeah, Artemage's Extra Life Bloodburn. So this is Artemage, as one of our big community members. Hello, sir. Hello, devs and Dev Game Club audience. It is that time of year again. Artemage is raising money for McMaster Children's Hospital here in Hamilton, Ontario. Putting his body on the line again. This one is much worse for him because you know what Artemage likes the flavor of? Spicy foods. Uh-oh. You know what Artemage can't endure? Spicy sensation. That brings us to Bloodburn. I love the name. On the 25th of November from 11 Eastern to 11 a.m. Eastern to 11 p.m. Eastern, Artemage will be playing Bloodborne for the first time. Artemage has also ordered the Season 22 Hot Ones hot sauce pack. See where this is going. Like Drunk Souls, Artemage will consume when he dies in the game if donated for, and only if donated for. There will be no freebies. Each sauce will have a different donation cost, so expect... Oh, this is going to go so badly. So expect to pay for the spice. I mean, I'm sure he's going to make a lot of money, but... for charity, but it's going to be bad for him. Details can be found on Artemage's social media. Just look for at Artemage84 on basically everything, not Twitter. A YouTube video will go up with a taste testing and pricing whenever the sauces arrive. And remember, my suffering means children's healthcare. It's win-win for all. Say goodbye to my tongue. Wow, a lot of tongue references this episode. Artemage. There we go. Yeah, he's come up with another crazy. All right, good.
Yeah, that's this coming Saturday after this episode goes live. So keep an eye out on twitch.tv/Artemage84. All right, I got one here from Kenneth Baker, former ArmsTech president. The subject is physical media. Hey, Brett and Tim. I recently finished Sea of Stars, a game that is a beautiful tribute to Chrono Trigger on SNES that I highly recommend to you and your listeners. The developer, Sabotage Studios, released the game as digital only, but are planning a physical release early next year. They mentioned something that resonated with me. Quote, our philosophy behind physical copies is that it should be able to act as a standalone product without the need to download a patch of any sort. It elaborated that they will send their official ROM to print after their first big patch. I'd love to hear your take on this philosophy and whether or not it's possible for AAA game studios to accomplish in this day and age. I ask if Twin Suns Corp is interested in exploring an option like this. Love your show and best wishes from Shadow Moses Island, Kenneth Baker, former ArmsTech president. We've heard from Kenneth Baker in the past. It's been a while, but been a minute. Yeah, I mean, your thoughts. I mean, we probably can't talk about Twin Suns in this regard, but your thoughts about that. I have thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's very possible. And I don't know if you, as a weird maybe connection point to this, they are announcing a Baldur's Gate 3 physical edition. It did so well, I guess. I don't know. It's like they're going to release it on platforms, and they had a special like deluxe edition. I think you could buy. They came with a statue and stuff, but they're like reverse engine. They're going kind of backwards and doing the regular physical release after the fact, even though it's already done so well. So really weird turn of events. They're self-published essentially, so it's they can do whatever they want. I mean, maybe it's just me being old, but I really miss the days of that concept that they're talking about. And I do applaud, I don't know Sabotage's lineage or their kind of emphasis or not, but there was something, as somebody who shipped things on physical media and did not have the benefit of patches in some cases, there definitely is something to be said for it. And I do think with enough discipline and focus and the right scope for a AAA game, it could be possible. We talk about it all the time. It's not easy, of course, but the crutch has been embraced. It's like, well, day one patch, or we'll just patch it, or, whatever. And live games have made it only more complicated. So, I think we make different decisions because we know we have that. And if you take that away, it is possible.
I think that, well, I think I have a caveat on that. But first of all, I mean, I think what it takes is a discipline that is just not in evidence. Our eyes are too big for, our stomachs in development typically. So we're going up to the last possible moment to try to get that thing done. And usually that means there is a negotiation, with the publisher or the platform holder, that means we're gonna be doing that. I think it's a lot more difficult on the PC, honestly. What it would take, I think, and I'm not even sure AAA companies really have the resources to do this to the degree that it would need to be done, because there's so many. Like, every PC is different. Every configure and it's some software you have, it's not running well, and it's because some other software you run, or this specific driver that you have on your machine had a bug, that they didn't find, right? I mean, you think about the explosion of driver / hardware configuration, of like literally everything that's in your machine, from the CPU to the GPU to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Drive speeds. And I mean, so I do think the PC has always been difficult. So for like AAA, something that's really pushing the bleeding edge of tech, I actually don't think it's viable on the PC to ship a box product. I think it's so cost prohibitive, even for a AAA developer, to even consider testing the number of configurations you would have to test to feel remotely comfortable that this was true. So that would be my caveat. I do think it's possible with, fixed hardware, so consoles. It should be possible. It's just. I
mean, Nintendo's still pretty close today, right? They still do patches, but when their game comes out, you could probably play most of them offline and they would be fine.
Oh yeah.
On the Switch.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Never update.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's true. And I think, there are probably others who are, pretty close to that as well. But yeah, I mean, I applaud Sabotage Studios. I don't know Sea of Stars, but you say it's a tribute to Chrono Trigger, so that they may not be shooting too high on the sort of technical requirements that you can actually expect most PCs to be fine, as long as they meet whatever minimum spec it is. I haven't seen the game at all, so I don't know. But anyway, I agree with the thinking, but on a PC it's extremely difficult to predict, what weird hardware. I even had a bug in Tacoma, which if you had a specific second screen experience, I think maybe if you were using the second screen experience with the Xbox One and you had that turned on, so I guess that was an app that ran on your phone. You had that turned on before you turned on the controller. There was a bug. Like, how do you predict? You have to know to test that. The QA service we were using now has that in their test plan, but they didn't at that time. And so at that scale of that size developer, that can be a problem. So that was a pain to get patched too. I was traveling. I was seeing you actually when that happened. Anyway, let's go to the other email I sent you. So it'd be the first one, not the
Yep.
second one.
Major Tom to Ground Control. Wait a second. That broke my brain a little bit. From Moss Neotech. Hi, Tim and Brett. I just finished Alan Wake, and the credits song was Space Oddity by David Bowie. Yes, it was. Perfect. How on earth, pun intended, could they have gotten the rights to that? I am absolutely blown away. How difficult or expensive is it to get that kind of thing? I have no idea how this game has this song in it. Moss. Short and sweet, Moss.
Short and sweet, Moss. Love it. I mean, I'm not an expert on video game music licensing, so take stuff with a certain grain of salt. I do know that Alan Wake was pulled from stores, online stores. I mean, you could still download it if you owned it, but you could no longer buy it when their licenses to the music expired. They removed it from stores, and part of the Epic deal must have been restoring that licensed music because it's all in there. So that was a thing that actually happened, and so that probably meant that they got whatever, say 5 years of a license, and so as to make it cheaper. All of this stuff is highly negotiable, with Bowie in particular. I know. I mean, he's been in a video game. He was very forward looking on technology. He had he was big into the web before anybody was big into the web. In that kind of thing. So he was always kind of out on the edge of technology and trying different stuff and playful with tech. He had, I think it was just called Bowie.net or BowieNet or something. Where he interacted with fans. He was very involved. With the web in the early days. Yeah, Omicron, the Nomad Soul was the game. That was Quantic Dream's first game. I think it was their first game.
Yeah, maybe first. One of their first, yeah.
It was certainly very, very early for them. I think it might have been their first. And he's in the game, and he's on the cover. So in that case, probably that was part of it. He's sort of like Spielberg maybe in that way, being interested in other creative media. But in general, it's just a negotiation. And, I don't think there's any set fee, I think it's very Wild Westy still because there's not a ton of it, and it's a little different when people are composing music for you because, they'll have a set rate, that is how long it takes them to write, how many minutes of music and things like that. But when you're licensing, it's, what can you get away with, and it depends how much you're going to use of the song, and is it just going to be the person humming it or something like that? I don't know. I don't know if you've run into this. Did you do any? I don't remember if Tomb Raider had any or
well, yeah, I mean, not, I was never involved with the direct process.
Oh yeah, certainly. Like I said,
but no, it's, I don't want to say it's easier than you think, but once you get, a legal team who is familiar with how to, or agencies who are familiar with how to deal with this stuff, it's actually easier than you think, I would say, from my sort of third hand perspective. The other thing, though, too, is in this particular case, one benefit they probably had was they were originally published by Microsoft, and that probably gave them some leverage. Because when you have somebody like Microsoft there helping you negotiate, they have the ability and the backing to be able to do some of this stuff. We talked about also leading to Quantic Break. Saying both of those in quick succession. Yep. Quantic Break, which was very much about TV shows and working with Hollywood on some of these different rights, especially likeness rights. So yeah, I agree. I mean, it was a brilliant move, and I was also surprised they got it. But Bowie was part of it. But it was just a deal probably that they made, and it's just a money situation. They had a lot of licensed music in Alan Wake. Every every episode ending had a different licensed music, I think, right?
Yes, that's true.
I looked up the list.
And then the Lime and the
Roy
Coconut.
Orbison in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, it's just a matter of getting the right people on board, and spending the money, to be honest. I know it sounds silly to say that, but it is often a money situation.
Yeah, and usually I'm pretty sure, it's generally a flat fee, type of work. Because there's other games like, Guitar Hero or whatever, where not only do they have the music, but they've got it separately tracked and you can make it sound bad. Like, it's like a whole thing. Or Brutal Legend, which has many, many, many metal songs in it. It was a lot. Like, that game would not work if you couldn't have the music.
Are those licensed? I never played that game, so I don't know.
It's all licensed music. They've got, Ozzy, AC/DC, and Def Leppard, and I mean, just like you name it, Megadeth, and just everything. It's just everything. Like, name a band that plays metal. I think they had a Metallica song in there too. There's Iron Maiden. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff. There's tons of songs. I really like that game. I would like to play that again. But who has the time? Anyway, speaking of who has the time, it's time for us to call it a night. We are here almost at an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you for sending in those emails to devgameclub@gmail.com. We also love to get your reviews. Haven't had one in a minute. Would love to have another. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com. Technically still on Twitter at devgameclub, though, there are no interactions happening there, but, it's there. Or you can find my co-host streaming on twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
Are you still streaming your Arkham Knight, or is that...
Yeah, I think I'm... I was going to try to do it tonight, but I don't think it's going to happen. I still want to do one more session of Arkham Knight, but I have actually reinstalled Control.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Because I want to play the DLC, including the Alan Wake stuff, and then I think it's highly likely that after I play the rest of the 2 DLCs, there's 2, right, for Control, I will likely play Alan Wake 2, stream it. Though I will say, playing Trespasser, that game would be great streaming. Because it's so ridiculous.
Well, apparently it has a dedicated following. You might have some crossover. We also have a Discord. There's a link in the show notes. It's a fan Discord run by the fans. You can go check that out. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo, that Discord, our merch store, there's a link there at the Discord for the merch store, are by Mark Garcia, among others. Have fun blithely strolling past some dinosaurs this week, and good night.
Good night.